All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're hailing from and watching our Global Nerd today. My name is Stephanie Austin. I am the Executive Director of Global Chamber Dallas Fort Worth, and we're so glad to have you. We have some exciting people that are on our panel today, and I'm just exuding with joy today. So thank you for everyone joining. Just want to share a little bit about Global Chamber for those who don't know about Global Chamber. Global Chambers in 605 plus regions. We have 605 plus chapters. We're in 195 countries. And so we have a huge reach. We have over 20,000 members. And the beautiful part about Global Chamber is that it's not just a chapter for the city, it's the chapter globally. And whenever you want to do business across the globe or even across the US, or with even like Texas, you can put 5 states in there, right? If you're in Dallas, you can do business in Houston or San Antonio or Austin. And so we do import exporting, and we do so much all other things, services as well. And we're able to connect and have those warm connections. That's the beauty of Global Chamber and building relationships. So what I will say today, if when as you're joining us, make sure that you drop your information into our chat box, your name, your LinkedIn, so people can connect. And I would recommend connect with one person that you don't know, and just to find out a little bit more about what they do, and they can learn more about what you do. So we will go ahead and get going. As I mentioned to you, we have warm connections, but we usually have over 800 events a year. I would say 90 to 95% of them are global, thus Global Chamber, right? Because people want to do business with people that, if I want to do business with someone in Atlanta, I'm in Texas, I don't know anyone, I have to fly there. But because you're part of Global Chamber, there's more than likely someone that can connect you to that person. So our marketing expansion is wide. And so that's the beauty of being part of the chamber. We welcome people. Growing globally is complex, but companies face conference themes. Resilience is a global strategy, networking, intentional things that we do, as I mentioned earlier. So let's be intentional. So, why are we here today? I'm going to introduce you to my board chair, Anthony Piccolo. He's the board chair and the CEO of Performance Scoring. And I'm going to kick this off to him. I used to run track and I ran relays. And so we always the baton. So I am putting it back. And Tony, it's on you. Anthony, is on you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. Yeah, so I'm the board chair for our DFW chapter. Really excited to be here with Michael and Gary, sharing some really great information about alternative clean energy. And I know that they have a lot to offer uh, our membership, as well as to be a sounding board and a connector in the space for all of our global chamber tribe, and I'm excited to get started. So with that, Gary, do you want to who wants to kick us off here? I know we've got some slides coming, and maybe we'll do a full-on introduction here.
So we were going to go ahead and kick off Gary. I just want to say who Gary is. Gary is the president of Southwest Alternatives, specializing in oil, gas, and alternative asset investments. I know you guys can read, but sometimes people are more, audio. So I'm going to read some of the bullet points. He's focused on building cash flowing, tax efficient portfolios for high income investors. And when I read that, I was like, oh, wow, I'm glad to know that, because I think Anthony and I was talking about investors a while back. So this is great to know as well. Successfully scaled investments from a few wells, more than 200 wells. Make sure you guys ask him what that's all about. Extensive experience with West Texas Permian Basin energy investment, and partners closely with operators and capital investors across the energy sector. He also helps investors diversify beyond traditional markets to generate cash flow and reduce tax exposure. So we'll go ahead. I'm going to punt it over to you again, Anthony. And after Anthony and Gary, we then will do our introduction of our infamous Michael, our Michael Martin. All
Infamous.
right, let me stop sharing. There you go. Sorry about that.
Hey, thanks, Stephanie. Gary, yeah, love to hear about what you're working on, what you're working in, and how our members can come alongside you, and how you can empower them, and vice versa. So the floor is yours.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate the baton reference. So, yeah, we'll grab that baton and I'll run my lap. So, yeah, just to expand upon the what you how you introduced me is, yeah, we're very active in West Texas. So right now, oil and gas is all in the headlines. We're right in the most productive, prolific part of the U.S. domestic national production area. So if you want to look up a city, that city would be Midland, Texas, or Lubbock. That's where we are located in terms of our operations. I'm here in Phoenix, so to the networking talk, if anybody has anything that they need to do in Phoenix, Arizona, I've been here a very long time. I've been part of the Global Chamber a very long time. Reach out to me, happy to be part of your network. So based on my experience in the oil patch, I thought I would just kind of cover six basic points to help kind of orient people to what's going on in the global markets and help them understand what's going on with oil and natural gas. I think that our position is a little unique because we're actually producing. We actually have wells. We drill wells. We're underwriting these investments and things like that. So anyway, so the first point I'd like to make is that the U.S., because this is a global audience, the U.S. is a very unique uh, country legally based on the fact that we're one of the few major countries in the world where citizens have private rights to mineral resources. Most major countries do not. That's the province of the government. And here in the United States, aside from our federal lands, which are different, if you have a piece of property, that property originally had mineral rights attached to it, they may be severed now, sold off to somebody else. But let's just say your uncle owned 640 acres out in West Texas. They would also own the mineral rights below that. So there's really a lot of private ownership in oil and gas. And I think that that's really helped the US to stay very innovative, very nimble in terms of how capital is allocated, where people make investment decisions. So right now, there's a lot of money and investment going into the upstream area. So very simple to orient people that are not familiar with oil and gas. You have upstream is where you drill a well and produce from that well. Midstream is all the pipelines that gather all that production and move it where it needs to go. Downstream would be the refineries. So that's where you make your jet fuels, make your gasoline, and all sorts of other things. So we're up in the very beginning of the value stream. So, a lot of private money going into development of private resources. And I think that that really helps us stay nimble. It's also an interesting point because it allows regular folks, not just private equity, not just gigantic family offices, but individuals to participate in these kinds of projects. So, a lot of our projects are with other families, the family operators. So, anyway, just want to highlight, the U.S. is unique for a lot of reasons, but this is another. Second point is oil is the big story, but it is not the only story. And I'll elaborate here in a minute, but I do want to talk about oil. So oil is the big story. So demand has been steady over the last several years. Nothing crazy, but oil is primarily driven by transportation and plastics. It's used in thousands of different things, but those are the big things. So if you want to move big trucks around, if you want to have heavy excavators or have a big shipping container move anywhere, that's oil. So that's primarily for transportation. And then if you like your cell phone and you like any other kind of doors on your Tesla or anything else, dash, that's all made from plastics. So big application there. So demand has been steady, maybe 1, 2, 3%, just steady Eddie kind of growth. The big story here is about supply and the dislocation of supply. So it's just the pinch that's been driving the prices. So if we had had this talk 6 months ago or a year ago, the talk would be how do you make money in a low price a low a low price environment. So at that point, uh, oil was at $50. So there's a lot of discussion in my world about how do you stay lean, how do you still produce, how do you create a margin when prices are significantly lower. So right now it's just a price pinch. We have had shocks, many shocks before. So it's always a matter of how long the shock is going to last, but prices will come down. I like to think of the phrase, and I didn't generate this, I heard it somewhere, so I'm stealing from somebody I don't know. But they said it's like rockets and feathers. So prices will go up like a rocket and come down like a feather,
I like
nice
that.
and slow. So don't get too excited, but I think prices will come down. If you talk to people who work in the oil patch, they're not too excited, about $100 oil. They don't, I mean, they'll drill more, but they don't get super excited because they've seen the bust too. So prices go up, prices go down. So capital discipline, operational discipline are really important. So one thing I want to go a little bit behind the headlines for folks is a lot of decisions that get made in terms of oil and gas have to do with the prices in the future. So I every once in a while, just to stay current and see what's going on, I'll look at today's price of oil. Before I got on here, today's price of oil, West Texas Intermediate, is $104 per barrel. But I also every day I look at the futures prices. So that's what are the prices going to be in 2027 and 2028 based on contracts today. And those are about 70, and they had been significantly lower. The reason that those are really important is because that's what the banks use. That's what pension funds use. That's what big in uh, big institutional investors use to make their decisions about future investment. And it's at that area, that level that I think is pretty good. So pretty good meaning good for everybody. So 70 is a nice range for operators like us, and it's a good range for consumers. Like the rest of us, we're all consumers. But anyway, I wanted to highlight that let's look at the spot prices. Those are not crazy high, but they're not crazy low either. They've come up a little bit. So anyway, there right now there's a $30 difference between the price that you can buy oil on the spot market versus the futures market. So let's keep an eye on just something that I keep an eye on. It's really key for future investment determinations. So while oil is the main story, it's not the only story. So in the Permian Basin, when you drill a well, you get two things. You get oil and you get natural gas. And in things that we produce, they're about 80-20 split. So 80% liquid oil, about 20% natural gas. So it's incidental too. But a big thing that's happened in the US over the last several years is building out of pipelines to move that natural gas around. So I'll get into a little bit more of some of the demand drivers, but um, the natural gas is really it is a key component of production, but now it's becoming even more important because of an area that has a strong demand curve, which is natural gas itself. So as I said about oil, it's mostly transportation and plastics. Natural gas is basically electricity. So the great state of Arizona, where I live, and is similar to many other states, we have a nice mix of different ways to produce uh, electricity. You can produce it from hydropower. We have a nice nuclear facility. We've got plenty of solar farms. Michael's an expert on solar, so he'll tell us about solar. And but still, we produce about 45% of our electricity is from natural gas. There's a great big pipeline runs from Arizona east-west back to Texas, and that's where we get most of our natural gas. Florida, about 70% of their electricity comes from natural gas. A lot of places used to have coal. Coal's gone down, natural gas has gone up. So, and so, and a lot of places around the world have, similar kind of energy mixes. So one of the one of the things that's driving U.S. natural demand for U.S. natural gas is energy security in Asia. A lot of people on this call, very global, so they'll understand this, but there's been a lot of investment from Asia, specifically Japan, going into West Texas and trying to secure their rights to production of natural gas. So they want to buy that natural gas production in the with the anticipation that they're going to turn it into liquefied natural gas and ship it back to Japan, for example. So big Japanese companies have been buying up. There's an area east of Dallas called the Haynesville, and they own about 30% of the reservoirs out there right now. So they took a very big position on that. The other thing that's really driving natural gas demand is domestically is data centers. So data centers are going up. So electricity demand in the US is going up. It was going up before we started getting into AI. So there's a lot more that's going on top of that. So that's why I think a lot more attention should be put and placed on natural gas. So, but an interesting thing, maybe people don't follow it as closely, but there's been a lot of interest in what they call behind the meter generation. So that means they don't go to the utility company. So Google really doesn't, they want to move fast, right? They want to really fast. Google, Meta, all these guys, Amazon, they don't want to wait. So they're going directly to people that can produce uh, electricity for them. So that's why they might want to make their own solar farm. That's why they might want to make their own geothermal location. But they're also co-locating in Texas next to gas pipelines so that they're behind the meter. They don't have to talk to the utility. They talk to Exxon. Exxon will build them a power generation facility. So that's kind of an interesting thing that's going on right now. And then another trend that's coming related to natural gas is that there's been a lot of pipeline that's been built. I talked about that midstream that's going to take that production from, for example, West Texas and move it to the Gulf. So right now, so you take that natural gas, you freeze it, you turn it into liquefied natural gas, cool it down, you put it on a tanker, and then you ship it to Europe. There's a big difference between the price of natural gas in United States versus Europe. Ours is about $3. We can barely make money at $3 in the United States on natural gas. It's going for 15 bucks in Europe,
Wow.
going about 15 bucks in Asia. It's a crazy differential. So if
Gary,
that,
there's a big issue with my understanding is the kind of ships. There's a lot of rules, in terms of, energy export has to be on an American ship and kind of some of those rules that 60 Minutes ran a big special on this. We have so much gas, but we have an issue that there's only so many ships that can take the gas and
yep.
ship it both like from a legal standpoint and then also from a like a physical like the way these the ships themselves are built to be onloaded or offloaded.
Yeah, excellent point. And that really affects us domestically and internationally. So there's something called the Jones Act. I think that's
Yeah, that's
probably
what
what
I
they
was
were
thinking of.
referring to. So the Jones Act basically controls maritime between U.S. ports, and it's making it difficult for us to ship from, for example, Louisiana to New York City. It's just there's union rules and maritime rules and things like that. So it affects the cost locally. So that's one thing. And then just it's very technical to take a gas and safely bring it down to a temperature that it's a liquid. It's incredibly expensive and big infrastructure, and then to put it on that specialized ship to do it. So yeah, excellent points. But yeah, there's some big things going on there that I think will probably encourage people to make more of those investments, though. Do I have time? I'll keep going. I've got two more points
Let's
real quick.
yeah, you want to make a couple of quick points. We want to make sure we give Michael enough time as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Gary.
So fourth point is that actually I made that one is that the LNG exports is a big
Yep.
driver. So I'll go ahead and skip to the second one. The third demand driver, again for this global audience, I think they'll understand it, is that there's a lot of activity on reshoring. So reshoring of manufacturing. and not like light manufacturing, big manufacturing. So making chips, refining metals, uh, making medicines, things like that. A lot of those are coming back here. And when you make a plant, the first thing they talk about is land. Second thing they talk about is, the permits and things like that. Third thing is going to be power. Can I power this thing? And it's going to be so a lot of local uh, uh, discussions around electricity for sure. So I want to leave you with a few key thoughts. Um, Last thing is just be aware of the macro environment. So a lot of interesting things happening here in the macro environment. So number one is how long will the Straits of Hormuz be compromised? Second, what will happen? It's not the only choke point. There's a lot of others. So what will happen if other choke points like our facility, our U.S. Military base called Diego Garcia, it's out in the middle of the Indian Ocean. What if it has some issues? And then there's the Straits of Malacca. I hope that we just know where the Straits of Hormuz is, and not the Straits of Malacca, because it has as much transportation going through as, and probably more and more generalized versus just energy going through there than the Straits of Hormuz. So what if those become contentious? And then will Iranian infrastructure be attacked? So far, so good. It has not been in terms of there's some big, soft, juicy targets as far as their energy infrastructure that have not been attacked yet. So if they were, that's going to really kick off this thing for a long time. There's a facility there called Karg Island. I hope none of us get to hear about that too much. I just leave it the
Mm.
way it is. Um, and then fourth point, will 27, 28 prices continue to stay in their moderate range, or are they going to go up? Something we're monitoring. And then the AI thing, it's like how much of this is going to be hype and how much is actually going to be built out. Because if it really gets built out, then that's going to put a huge demand on US electricity demand. And yeah, we're going to be looking for lots of different sources. So those are my thoughts.
Man, Gary, thank you so much for educating our members and guys. We'd love for you to connect with Gary offline. I know he's got a obviously in the upstream world, you're constantly looking to pair investors with opportunities. And Gary, I'm sure you could be pretty helpful on that front for our members as well. So would love to make sure that you guys are able to connect with Gary and Michael. Really appreciate you joining us. Michael is a leader in the renewable energy space. You transitioned from a successful career in IT to solar energy, which those two things seem to go pretty much hand in hand, it seems like. But Michael's the former founder and EVP of Principal Solar, leading development of I think over 280 megawatts of solar projects valued at over $500 million, and is really focusing on helping Texas businesses adopt clean, safe, and sustainable on-site solar power solutions. And really excited to hear from Michael and see how our members can come alongside and benefit from or introduce contacts to Michael. Michael, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tony. Let me go ahead and see if y'all verify you're seeing some slides.
Yep, you're good. We're
Excellent.
doing it
Okay.
live.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting, the conversation we're having today.
There you go.
And hold on, making sure this thing wants to share properly. It's asking me a question.
Yeah.
Anyway, so interesting what Gary was just covering, because there's a lot of intersections here about electricity, and behind the meter, he brought up a term y'all may not be familiar with that people like me are familiar with all day long. Excuse me. And logistics and risk factors and all that kind of stuff, and AI in everybody's news. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but first let me go ahead and just walk you through some information here about I think in the setup for this, what Stephanie and company sent out was about local and global, and certainly you heard about local and global from Gary, and I'm going to do the same for you here. So anyway, we'll just talk a little bit about focus on solar power here. Let me
Can
get,
you press the continue to share? Yeah, there you go.
yeah, yeah. Why does it not want to, it's not accepting that when I do it?
You could stop sharing and try to share again. Maybe stop
Okay,
sharing. Yeah, click on
okay.
stop sharing PowerPoint.
Hmm. Let me try it right here. Yeah, okay. Ah, now it moved. Okay. Continue to share. Hmm. Okay, well, you've got this slide up. We'll keep going and
Yeah,
see how it
you
Yeah,
can see
behaves.
that's
it.
fine.
So I would also say that, as Tony mentioned in my intro stuff, I made a big career change 15 or so years ago. So it's been really interesting the last 15 years in this space. And I would argue that probably lots of us 15 years ago would have known way less about this because it was a way smaller part of our environment and all the places solar is currently in our culture and in our communities now. So I'm going to guess that if we surveyed people, they would say, I didn't know anything in 2010. I've at least heard about it and have some sense of it now. So it's funny. And so, why is solar, why is this happening? One, yeah, you don't really hear about it. Go online and search for solar disasters. You don't really hear about any. It's pretty passive technology. It's doing a lot of good things. And um, as it says on the right, getting better and cheaper very rapidly and annually. Since I've been in industry, the basic costs of the primary systems and the core components, meaning the modules, the panels, has come down by over 77%. I mean, that's crazy. It's like this stuff, right? We've all lived through this revolution, which is we're all carrying computers in our pockets. And it's very similar to what's happening in clean energy now because it's very technology driven. And so that's really fun and interesting. And then the other key thing is because for any industry to get going and to expand and have impact, you've got to have capital, you got to have money, you got to have funds. So there's lots of different capital sources depending on how and where and why you might be deploying solar power. So popular people have a positive impression. That's great. Better, cheaper, and the money's there. So let me try and go to the next slide now and see what it tells me. All right. Well, it's got that message again, Stephanie. Let me try again here.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. I found a trick around it. We're good.
Okay.
Okay, so what does this mean? What has happened in the market, in our culture, in our business community, and in our many places here and around the world over the last 15 years? So the the cumulative, if you can see that, the up and to the left chart there is 39 times growth in just the gross amount of solar power installed in the US only in my time in this industry. So look where it was when I started and look where it is now. It's pretty fun. Um, and I'll talk about that. And that leads into the right point, which is happen all over the place. So for instance, maybe a good percentage of you have or regularly shop at Target. They're one example, along with many other corporations who routinely run their stores with solar power. So there's a Target with solar on the roof. Um, and then the big news we usually hear about is this image on the far right, which was solar farms, which are always in rural areas, big chunks of land, um, and typically land that either used to be farmland and families are holding on to land by leasing it to a solar developer because they don't want to farm anymore. They can't farm anymore because of market or climate changes. So it's a way to keep land in families historically. That's a really interesting aspect of this that I find fascinating. And I love being a Texan as well, like Garrett. Gary's doing business here, but I live here and I'm a Texan, is that that's a big issue now. The farming, ranching world has shrunk. So younger folks that have these in their families don't know what to do with this land. And this is a great alternative now, wind farm, solar farm, et cetera, to keep it in your family versus going, we don't farm or ranch, we're going to sell it off. We have to because it's not producing anything, but this is a way to make it produce income. And then residential solar, lower left there. That, by the way, is my former guest house and my solar power plant at my house in Dallas. It also had batteries in the garage there. But think about that. I don't know how many actual homes are in the US, but there's 300 and something million of us. There's not 300 million homes. Maybe there's 150 million. I don't know. But we have enough power now. That chart above is enough power in our country now to power 47 million average homes. So it's just crazy what I've experienced and witnessed. So it's not a oddity anymore. It's kind of central to how we power America. And to Gary's point, solar power and clean energy that I'm talking about, it's really all about electricity, to his point. Um, and then again, this description of the expansion and applicability of solar is not just a USA thing. It's really exciting how it's happening everywhere. And I thought I'd go to the other extreme and show you some really remote developing world kind of places in these images here. Like if you think about the lower right there with that hut in Africa, it may not look like much to have one solar panel on a hut, but when a kid, a family, a business person in that culture has no electricity, and then you give them some electricity, it's pretty dramatic and amazing. Kids can read in their homes at night instead of trying to do that by kerosene lanterns, which is very toxic. Hang a little LED bulb, it'll run forever because typically it'll have a little battery in there as well. And the other two images, the one on the lower left is an application where water is critical everywhere on the planet these days, getting more and more critical. Speaking of Permian Basin, Gary, I'm sure Gary didn't mention, but we all as Texans and those doing business there living here worry about water in the Permian Basin because you know our population's growing, our demands are growing. So this is an application in developing world where they use solar to help pump and distribute water efficiently. Not girls carrying um, jugs on their head all day long going back and forth. But now we can implement with remote distributed functional electricity in solar. We can now run water generation and distribution and use very efficiently in all these places around the world. And then the one up above is an array, a solar array and installation supporting micro businesses in a community. It also serves as a gathering place underneath it, whether the sun or other weather is problematic. But that's a little town square, if you will, village square, where it may be, for instance, an example you could perhaps get is textile production with electric sewing machines versus hand produced textiles. Think about the output. And these are typically women led industries. So, as a father of four adult women, I'm always very excited about things that are helping empower women to do things productive and good for them around the world. It's a great example. And so those are just little examples, but we also have the big scale solar and residential solar in the developed world. And this chart to the right here indicates just the again, kind of like the chart about the USA, but rest of world, how the growth and of solar has been super dramatic the last few years. So very exciting what's happening there around the world. And then one thing I just wanted to share, because what I haven't stated yet is my focus is on commercial or business property, not your home. I used to do, as Anthony mentioned, as Tony mentioned, I used to do big scale grid utility stuff out in the boonies, but now I've been focused on commercial solar. So the kind of places that it works are listed here. Like we have to deal with the building owner. You know how it is. If you don't own a building, you can't make decisions about a significant measure that you're going to install, like rooftop solar and or batteries. And companies that want to make this a part of their brand and how they operate, and also save money. It's also good and reduce their contributions to grid level pollution, because the two big things that lead to air pollution in the US and pretty much worldwide are transportation, all the cars, buses, and fleets. The other big one is how we power buildings and our homes. Those are the two big things. Those are the big things we need to address. And we all know about EVs and how that's going. And the same thing's happening with powering our grid and our buildings now with rooftop solar. Um, anyway, and you also don't want to put it on a really tall buildings if you think about it. If you've got a 100-story building with a tiny little footprint on top, it can't generate much power. So typically solar is best suited for 1 to 3 story buildings, or flying in out of airports and you see industrial facilities. Those are ideal. Because think about it. What else is going on that roof? Absolutely nothing. So it's a great use of an asset that's available. And you got to have a good quality roof. That's my last point there. But anyway, that's where I focus. And then let me sum it up for everybody. 3 Ps of solar. The stuff's proven. We have installations for decades. I think solar in space has been running for I don't know how many decades, but even on the ground, subject to weather, we have many installations in West Texas and all around the country that have been out there for decades. They still work, and they still work well. Um, that has led the solar manufacturing industry to provide 25-year warranties. How about that? 25-year warranty. I love to ask people, Name one thing you've ever purchased in your life that had a 25-year warranty. I've never had anybody's hand go up. So it's pretty incredible. You can stick this thing out in weather, West Texas, on my rooftop, on your rooftop, um, and it's going to last. Not that it will be perfect, but it's easy to fix a solar panel if something happened to it versus other complexities and other kinds of power generation. It pays for itself. How it pays for itself and when is subject to lots of variables. For instance, if you're in um, New England or the West Coast where the price of power is much higher, your payback's going to be quicker than it is in lower cost electricity Texas, but it's going to pay for itself for sure. You can do the math and you can do forecasts and projections, and then you can true up and see what's the real savings you've attained. And also, Gary's talking a lot about fuels and all the risks and complexities with oil and gas around the world. Many of things we cannot control. There's no fuel and there's no moving parts on solar. So they have almost no maintenance. Maybe in certain locations where you have a lot of ag and dust, you clean them periodically just to make sure they have optimal performance. And finally, for the work I do, or if you're a homeowner ever thinking about this, which I encourage people to look at this at home, it's a good improvement, a good measure, a good feature to add to your building. Because when you sell your home or your business property, to say, well, we've got a power plant on the roof. It's been working really well for 6 years or 12 years or 2 years. So you're going to get that too when you buy this building. Could make a difference in your ability to sell and market your property. And part of that is then, by the way, we all know the grid does sometimes fail now. Not like it was most of the years living in Texas. Now people know about the grid and worry about it. So you get this resilience feature as well. If you have solar on the roof, especially if solar paired with a battery, then if the grid goes down, you're going to be able to function at some level and keep life going with some level of normal behavior during a grid outage, which unfortunately become more common. So those are the three P's. And finally, only because we are in the world we're in right now, I just think this is funny. I love the guy's quote there. What if it's a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? I don't know. So anyway, thank you very much. It's fun to visit with y'all. And subsequent to this, however it's done through the Global Chamber, I welcome contact from anybody if I can be of help and just some information, or if anybody has any interest in exploring this for their commercial property. So appreciate you having me today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, if you'd put your LinkedIn or some way to contact you maybe there in the chat, people can reach out and love to open it up for some
Yeah.
questions for both of these guys being on. Sometimes a lot of people think, the oil and gas industry and green energy are kind of at odds with each other. And while sometimes that could be true, they're really complements to one another. Different kind of different approaches for different situations, and a lot of times they're used in tandem, right? So there's times when the sun doesn't shine, like at night, for example, and you need that oil and gas, or obviously solar doesn't produce plastics that we're all so familiar with. So a lot of people who think, well, if we go all solar, we won't need, natural gas and those kind of organics. That's completely not true. And at the same time, just like Michael mentioned, solar is a great way for wherever you're at on this earth to get fast, affordable energy, especially when the sun's shining. But I'd love to take some questions. I think we've got a couple in here now. We've got one about the data centers related to energy and the use that the usage it's or the amount of energy it's going to take for these data centers. This person had a kind of centered around, does the surplus of American natural gas really help data center building and running here in the States? So I think that's to Gary. Gary, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. Short answer on that. And before I answer it, I do want to make another connection between. And I loved what you said. I like to say for energy, it's like kind of an all of the above as far as sources, but also there's two interesting technologies that are coming out of oil and gas producers. Is a lot of people don't know, but there are dissolved lithium in the extractable fluids that come out of many oil and gas wells
Hmm.
Some to the north part of your state have about 500 ppm of lithium in there. So it's
Hmm.
about the least impactful way to pull
Mm.
out lithium from those fluids without mining. So anyway,
Amen.
oh, fun fact. The second is that there's a lot of interest in my industry about geothermal power
Yeah.
because we are experts in drilling. You go down 10,000 feet and you go out about a mile left or right, mile or two. It's the same technology used for geothermal. So a lot of the oil and gas folks are looking at geothermal very closely. So
Wow,
back to
that's great.
data centers. So data centers, yeah, it's all about location. It's expensive to move energy around, whether you're talking about a transmission line or if you're talking about a natural gas line. So what they're doing in Texas, the strategy is to put those data centers right in the path of a pipeline or right where it's being produced. So one of the big developers right now in Texas is Exxon and some of these other majors. So yeah,
Hmm.
just trying to co-locate so you don't have to move it around. It's probably better for everybody to do it that way. There's two major areas that are forecasted to be built out for data centers. One is Texas for the reasons I just mentioned. The other is Virginia because it's close to the government and maybe other things like that. But those are the areas where data centers are going to be built out.
Yeah. Yeah,
Steph,
I what I'd contribute to that, Gary's right on. And um, I think most folks now are also seeing that all the data center conversation about all the potential capacity is not what's going to happen, but it's still going to be significant. It's a new kind of customer for the grid operators. That's the thing. They're going, wow, we've never had a customer like these guys before. So they're trying to figure it out. And so, yeah, we're going to need a lot of ways to address that and support them because look, we all of us want more. Everything's getting electrified. We're all calling for it, yet we're complaining about the data centers. So we have to find the balance. We're going to have to support them, or we're going to have to go back to, you know, less technologically driven world, which isn't going to happen, right? And the other interesting thing about behind the meter that Gary mentioned earlier is the good thing about those solutions, whatever the technology is you can do it fast. The problem with grid scale stuff too, it's complicated. There's miles of transmission lines. There's lots of jurisdictions to deal with. It's scale. So behind the meter is smaller, faster, and really good for things like data centers, not for all of their power, but maybe for a significant part of it where they have less impact on the grid. So it's interesting how this is converging right now. And geothermal, I'm glad you brought that up, Gary, because geothermal is a wonderful answer. Also, when you're in the right place, it's a bit like oil and gas. You got to be in the right place
right.
where the
Yep.
Earth's subsurface is optimal for that. And it's all over the map in Texas, for instance. Some places are great, but like right in the middle of the city of Dallas, typically there's not great geothermal source, but it is what it is, right?
Mhm.
Stephanie, you had a question, I think.
Yes, Michael had posted that batteries will ultimately displace short-term gas plants as all the big generator manufacturers like Caterpillar are aggressively selling. And it's funny, I saw something in my HOA today, and one of the residents mentioned, say, hey, CoServe recently announced a partnership with Base Power, which is a
Mhm.
battery backup.
Yeah, right.
And they're pretty much giving away for nothing, like $345. There's no monthly fee or anything like that. And
Yes.
so when you put that in there, it just jarred my
Mhm.
memory what I just got, just received. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I know the base guys down here in Austin. It's cool stuff. They're focused on residential, and the idea is to give, when it's needed, give resilience to the homeowner. But on most all the days, let's say the 360 days of the year where you don't have a power grid issue, the rest of the time, base power gets to use the stored electricity in the battery to play arbitrage on the market, meaning, they charge it up when the power costs are low overnight and then they'll have it and be ready to just sell it high later in the day when the prices are high. So it's a cool business model it's really a great thing for managing the grid. It allows us to use more sites and sources like all these homes. Then you get into thermostat control and all these other kind of things we don't have time for now. But that's glad you mentioned that, Stephanie. That's a real thing that's available to people all over Texas and the country at some level now.
Right.
If you guys had one and I know we're going to wrap up here real quick, but if there's one piece of advice for ways our members can get plugged into whether it's solar or oil and gas, whether that's through an investment or in through networking and connection. For you guys, what's the best way for our members to begin that journey?
Mm. I guess it would depend on in my sector be, what is the interest, right? Is it to be a user? Is it to be an investor? Is it to get in the some part of the business? Like for instance, the recycling business is really going to be taking off with all the new clean energy technologies as they age out or get improved, then we want to, and they're already existing, these recycling industries. So there's a lot of different, there's no one answer, Anthony. It kind of depends on who they are and where they want to fit in the whole market. And it may be the same thing for Gary. I don't know.
Well, no, I think you like that's why the question was so broad. Like
Yeah.
right there, you just gave kind of a space that probably most of our members haven't even thought about, right?
Sure.
Right, there's all this, I mean, solar is, while it's been around for a long time, the technology's gotten better, and there's still, precious minerals, and things that are a part of those old solar panels that would need to get recycled and can get
Right.
reused. But
Exactly.
Gary, what about for you? What's and I know the question's broad. It was meant to be kind of a broad swath.
Sure, no problem. So, this is number one, a networking community. It's about making soft introductions, soft landings, as you guys described it earlier. So, if you have any needs here in Phoenix, Arizona, that's where my network is the
Okay.
strongest. So, reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I put my LinkedIn profile there.
Okay.
If you are a professional, high income producer, high W-2 business owner, and have some curiosity about oil and gas, maybe some either for tax reasons or for diversification reasons. A lot of people are, you know, love the stock market but hate the stock market at the same time and want to look at some different alternatives. So we're happy to chat about that. I did put a link to a guide that we have for those who are curious about those things. So yeah. Anyway, just want to be a resource, just like Michael said, just really just want to be a resource to folks, help them out in any
Yeah.
way we
And
can.
and I'm in Austin and in Texas. So again, I'm happy to be supportive of anybody that's got some Texas centric ideas. So again, been here a long time, got a pretty good network and love to help people in that way, whether it has anything to do with me or not. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Absolutely.
much, both of you guys. All right, Stephanie, what do we?
Yes. So I thank you for passing the baton to me, Anthony. Gary, thank you so much, Gary and Michael, for the discussion today. Truly appreciate it. I would advise everyone just to reach out to both of you because there's so much to learn, but there's also so much opportunity. And so, Anthony, thank you so much for moderating this. You had the right answers and was able to navigate the waters very well. I know how to stay in my swim lane. So I want to talk a little bit more about Global Chamber before we wrap it up. Who do we help? We help exporters, service providers, investors, ecosystems. We have meetings like this that's very thought-provoking and great for business opportunities for people to connect and also to learn things that we don't know and haven't learned about before. So it was great for me. Different challenges we address as a global chamber, finding best targeted clients for our members anywhere across the world, navigating local regulations and cultures, trust issues with global partners, limited visibility, credibility abroad, getting the right talent and leadership. There's so much that we do as Global Chamber. As I mentioned to you earlier today, we have over 20,000 members. We in 605 metros. Oh, I hear feedback in 195 countries. So if you're interested, please feel free to scan the QR code. Put Dallas as your metro. We would love to have you as in our chapter, and not even if not in our chapter, in whatever city that you're in. We're all a global tribe. We're family. As you can see, Gary's in Arizona. He's part of the Global Chamber Dallas Fort Worth presentation today. So we invite that and we welcome it. These are just a few shots and everything. More opportunities, more simply be global and unstoppable. And that's it. That's all I had. Did anybody have any other questions that we overlooked before we sign off? All
No.
right. Anthony,
Well,
you can take it from here. You can close us out.
hey, well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining Michael and Gary as they shared their world, and we really hope that you guys connect and look forward to our next session.
Oh, Rebecca has her hand raised.
Oh, somebody had a hand. Oh, Rebecca.
Rebecca, can you come off mute?
She's just saying bye.
Everyone gets, oh, so
Thank you all.
everyone gets, oh, Michael said everyone get 5 minutes. Okay. She's just saying goodbye. All right.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.